everyone. So what do we do when we're dumped on this planet and we wake up here and it's chaotic? It's homeless people on the streets. It's parents that are crazy and doing terrible things to us and we can't escape. It's bombs going off in other countries. It's like we don't like our bodies and people are bullying us. It's, oh my goodness, what do I do with my life? I don't know what my purpose is. And oh my God, I've got all this pain and suffering. And the world is awful and people are cruel. And especially in times of war or change or de-stressing, when the world's de-stressing, it can just be overwhelming. So what do we do? I mean, sometimes people just get very depressed, and quite rightly so, when certain things are thrown in our face and we've got our phone and there's endless streams of bad things that we can see on our news feed, and then, you know, the media's stirring it all up, and it's just really, really hard. So how do we survive living in this digital age where everything negative that happens is thrown in our face and we're almost like cyborgs and attached to our phones? Well, you really need to meditate to survive, unless you're super advanced that you don't. But I don't know how I would survive if I didn't have a meditation practice. And what that does is it centers you and returns you back into a space that doesn't change. So you can go home into stillness when there's just chaos in the relative. And the relative world is not meant to be stable. It can be temporarily for a few minutes, but then there's always going to be something going on. And so we can't rely on it to have any level of sanity, because it's not going to happen. And it's not designed that way. It's designed to show you a lot of contrast. It's designed to challenge you. It's designed to trigger you. It's almost like sadomasochistic. It wants to press those buttons. Whatever you fear is going to happen to you at some point for you to process it. And it sucks. Sometimes we have too much to process. We don't want to process it. And the universe is like, no, you're going to process it. Because actually, the universe has a lot of faith in us. It thinks that we can handle way more than we think we can. And sometimes I've actually had a word and said, look, you're giving me too much. I know you think I'm amazing. Thanks for making me into your image of God, but this is just too much. Can you please make it more graceful? Can you kind of give me one thing at a time instead of 10 things at once? But sometimes it actually wants to almost destroy you and break you, because it knows that when you're totally destroyed, then the destruction almost is a gateway into a deeper realm, which, if you've had that happen, it's not the nicest process. But if you go into a dark space, dark, it always comes out with light. And some of you might have experienced that if you've had rock bottom moments. And I've had multiple rock bottom moments. You may not be aware of this, because people don't know about what really goes on behind the camera, but I've had a divorce, I've had stuff happen in my childhood, I've had I won't go into it in this video, but moments where I was totally crushed and the old me just died. And sometimes people can have lives with multiple deaths within them. You don't have to just drop the body to die. Sometimes old ways of seeing the world, people that maybe are not going to continue on your journey, need to go away. It's not that we don't love them, it's just that the organization in the intelligence in nature is moving people around, and that can be painful too. But I digress. It can suck. But if we expand out, it's always for the best, even if in the moment you just feel like it's too much. And if you relax, and no matter what has been thrown at you, if you relax and you stop repressing the emotions and you collapse into the emotions and you allow those emotions to be as big as they want to be. If you're angry, if you allow the anger to be there. If you're sad, if you allow the sadness to be there. If you don't fight it, you collapse into it. Not necessarily into the storyline, but just scanning the body, feeling, I feel sad. Where do you feel sad? Give it a shape or a color. Allow it to be as big as it wants to be. And I know this is counterintuitive, because most people, when they see something they don't want to see, or they hear something they don't want to hear, or something happens and they just feel they can't cope, and their whole body is racked with different cocktails of emotions. They just want to push it down, push it down, push it down. Don't do that. Even if you're successful, it's going to come up later and it's going to cause illness. And it's not what the universe actually wants you to do. The universe is saying, this stress is in the collective. This stress is within your physiology as well. I would like you to do a social service and to feel it and to release it, because you can't heal what you don't feel. And you're not just healing it for yourself, you're healing it for the world. And I'll do a separate video on how that actually happens. It's quite magical, and it's never a lonely place. Grief and sadness is not a lonely place, because every human being right now has some grief, some sadness, whether they're feeling it now or whether they'll feel it later. We're all in it together. Nobody escapes. If you're famous, you don't escape. If you're good looking, you don't escape. If you live in a sunny place, you don't escape. If you're super intelligent, you don't escape. Nobody escapes. So everybody has to have this human experience. And it will be unique to you, but also you're going to have to deal with challenging situations and interesting things in the body that you maybe want to escape from. And some people want to escape by drinking or having a lot of sex or throwing themselves into work or, I don't know, spiritually bypassing. I mean, that happens in the meditation community, in the spiritual community. We come up with elaborate ways of thinking and, oh, it's people's karma and it's due to something they did in the past life, and, oh, something good is happening and I don't really need to feel empathy even though I don't fully understand. I mean, there's a whole host of things that I could go into about spiritual bypassing, and I'll do that in another video. But the most spiritual thing you can do is to allow yourself to feel. And I know this can sometimes be inappropriate, especially if we're in a group of people or we're at work or we want to get some deadline and these things are coming up. But really just pause and allow yourself to release whatever you need to release. And there's a lot that is being released right now in the collective. We see it. We know it's going on. We watch the news if we do. We're aware that there's a lot being released. And if we just get angry about it or frustrated or hateful or just, disappointed to the point where we just think that humanity's now over. And then we come up with all of these theories. I don't know. There's a lot of conspiracy theories going on that I don't need to go into. But rather than just going off into the head and just getting really upset and hateful and upset about what is going on in the world, just know that it's an invitation to go deeper inwards and to release it. And don't attach to the storyline, because it's not about the storyline. The universe has a certain amount of stress that needs to be released. And when it comes out, it might come out in a war, or it might come out in a divorce, or it might come out in people getting fired and losing their jobs, or it might come out in some demonic behavior in people or cruelty. But it's just that it needs to come out. And once it's out, it's out. And it also shows us things because it wants us to use our consciousness to ask for something different. So you're going to see contrast. So for instance, I see somebody on the streets. There's a lot of people without housing, and it's horrible to see, especially here in LA. It's heartbreaking to see people that way. When you see somebody, really wish for something different. Wouldn't it be nice if all people had food and housing and were taken care of? And I actually, when I see homeless people, send them light. And I plant a seed just through that desire for things to be different for that person and for everybody else. And then I move my attention away from it, because if I keep my attention on what I've seen, I'm going to get sad and depressed. So when you see something, be aware of how long you hold your attention on it, because your attention is very, very powerful, and you don't need to hold it. You can release it, because if you hold your attention on something negative for over 15 seconds, it almost like creates a lock-in, and then you can feel it in your physiology and you start to get depleted. And it's unnecessary. You can just see something and then move away from it. Want it to be different? Come away. Wouldn't that be nice if people had housing? Come away. Won't it be nice in the future when that is different, when that is different? It's just timing. We don't need to stay on something and beat it, you know? Maybe you're not the person that's going to make that change. Maybe it's a different group. Maybe it's somebody that has the resources and the ability to make that change. So you don't have to feel so helpless, because a lot of the time we see things and we feel helpless because we're designed to want to help. We're social. If somebody falls over, we want to pick them up. But the problem is we see so many people falling over in the media, we can't physically pick them up. And so all our energy of I want to help, I want to pick up, just gets trapped in the body, and then we get depressed or upset and angry and just so fed up with the world. So what you can do is be with your own emotions. Because everything that happens in the world, all the stress that happens in the world, is in the collective. And everybody gets some of that collective stress in their physiology. So even if you don't know what's going on in the world, you've never even turned on the TV, or you're not really checking your phone, you'll still have some of the collective stress that you'll have to dissolve for everybody else. It's just shared. It's shared within groups, within families, within communities, and just within the whole of the universe. It's going to be within you. So just come back to yourself and feel and release in a graceful way. And that is your social service. You are an emotional being. And that doesn't mean that you're not spiritual. This is really, really important. Sometimes in the spiritual community, we don't want to feel. We think we've failed if we're feeling sad. We think we shouldn't be. We think that if we meditate, then we're just going to be like always still and calm. No, the universe doesn't want us to always be still and calm. There's a dynamism in the universe. It's going to throw stuff at you. It's going to say, here, I need you to dissolve this. Off you go. And I know you think you can't, but you're going to figure it out. Because if you don't dissolve it, it's just going to make you ill, or I'm going to make it greater to the point where you can't ignore it and you're completely crushed and destroyed. And I know that might sound, horrific, but it's almost like, here's an interesting analogy. There's a lioness, and she loves her cub. And it's a wild, wild forest. And she knows, well, let's call it a jungle. No, lionesses are not. They're in a more like savannah. It's savannah. And there's a lot of things that cub needs to learn. And she knows if she mollycoddles the cub and she stays with the cub and she protects the cub and she never allows the cub to feel afraid, to feel alone, to feel unsafety, to fear, then she's not doing her job as a mother. So there's these heartbreaking videos that you can watch. And I love animals, so it really, really breaks my heart. When the cub and the lioness are all cuddling and she's licking her cub and they're so cute together. And then one day she just walks away. And the cub's following the mother, meowing, meowing, and she just keeps walking, meowing, meowing. And then she just goes, and the cub doesn't know where the mother is and is just left, terrified, doesn't know what to do, and has its dark night of the soul. In the first night, a cub is alone in the savannah, could die, could be eaten. Its mother, its only sense of security is gone. It just almost goes through a death experience. It has to be reborn. It has to be rearranged that I need to survive. I need to figure this out. And it learns how to hunt on its own. And it becomes a lion. And so when you live life and you feel loneliness and you feel disappointment and you feel sadness and you feel horror sometimes, you're going through a process of becoming a lion. But then there is a day you're a lion and you look back at what you've seen and how you were in the past, and you realize you couldn't be this lion. You couldn't have the strength you have now had you not figured out how to extricate yourself out of the complete horror that you were in. Now, some people have a lot of things that happen to them, and it just makes them stronger. Because really, what other option do you have? You either sink or you swim. And in those moments of breaking point, there is an intelligence that kicks in and usually says, swim. And so when we look back on our lives, we can see the moments where we collapsed and we were reborn, and where we collapsed and where we were reborn. And if I scan my life, I've had multiple times where I've collapsed and been reborn, and collapsed and been reborn, and collapsed and been reborn. And I have really hated it, but I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't have experienced all of those things. And it's enabled me to really have such great empathy too for people, because a lot of the time I've felt those things that people are feeling. And so no matter what is happening to you, it's going to make you more compassionate. It's going to make you a better human being. It's going to humble you. It's going to give you the strength. So when we look around in the world and we see things that are going on that we don't want to be going on, know that we're all going to get stronger in the process of extrication out of that. We're going to learn lessons. And then some people will say to me, yes, but we never learn lessons. We just keep repeating our mistakes. No, we do learn lessons. Things are getting better. If we rewound 30,000 years ago, it would have been horrific. I mean, in medieval times, there were torture chambers, there were heads on sticks. I mean, we've seen gladiatorial rings where people would just, instead of go to the cinema, go and watch people get killed and eaten and think that's a good time. So we are getting more civilized. Women have voices now. We can vote. I can make this video. And so things are progressing. Things are getting better. But just sometimes there's a shimmying process that goes on. You get 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 5 steps forward, 3 steps back, 1 step forward, 1 step back, 4 steps forward, 1 step back. But ultimately, we are moving forward. It's not like everything just suddenly becomes better all in one go. There's this kind of shimmying forward. And so just be patient with yourself and other people, because in that process of releasing stress, that shimmying process occurs. And so there's no perfectionism in the process. Allow yourself to be imperfect. Allow other people to be imperfect. Allow the world to be imperfect. And know that you're shimmying along, and other people are shimmying along, and the world's shimmying along. And so when you see people and they're not maybe doing things in the best way, know that eventually they're going to be doing things in a better way. And if you treat yourself with gentle, loving kindness, you'll treat other people with gentle, loving kindness, and the world with gentle, loving kindness. And everybody's just doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them. And it's very difficult in the moment when you're having this eruption of emotion to not see that things could be different. And so what I mean by that is, if you're having an eruption of emotion, or you're watching somebody else have an eruption of emotion, they might have such an eruption that they can't see any other way of being. You might say, well, what you're saying isn't accurate, or, get into a better mood, or what's wrong with you? Why are you saying those things? Do you even believe them? At that moment, when there's such an eruption of emotion, you get completely hijacked. And what you say isn't real, and those thoughts are not facts, but you feel that they are. And so you just have to be very, very gentle and kind with yourself and other people when you notice that they're acting strangely, or they're saying things which are not true, or they're really, really just going off. We've all seen people go off on one. That it will settle down. And sometimes people, especially if they meditate, they'll have moments of clarity when they realize, oh, that was nonsense and now I feel better. But that doesn't mean that those moments won't come back again. That's part of the shimmying process. So you really have to have patience with yourself and other people, because there will be times when we talk nonsense, when we say things that are not true. There'll be times when we say things are not true and we kind of know that they're not true, but we say them anyway. That's actually quite a progressive state, because there's some witnessing going on there. I don't know whether you've ever been in an argument and you're saying, no, I hate you and this is why, no, no, no. But you kind of know that they've got a point. That's a good state, because there's some awareness there that's saying, yeah, that person has a point. You are being an arsehole. Sometimes you actually will think that that person is wrong. 100% they're wrong and you're right. And then 2, 3 days, maybe years go by and you're like, oh, they had a point. So the timeline can be different. But ultimately, in the bigger picture, the awareness always wins over and the sanity always wins over. Sometimes people have these aha moments just before they die, but hopefully you'll have them way before then. So just be gentle and kind with yourself. Know that everything's going to work out in the end. Nobody's perfect. They don't need to be. The world's not supposed to be perfect. It's a very challenging and interesting place, dynamic, and it's designed to press your buttons. It's designed for your evolution. It's designed for you to have those profound moments of transformation, which couldn't happen without that horror that breaks you. And, you don't have to do it alone. Make sure that, you have somebody you can talk to that you trust, that doesn't judge you, that isn't going to force you to be other than you are in that moment, that can show you some respect and unconditional love while you grow. Because sometimes friends, they have their own agendas, or parents, they can have their own agendas. So it's really nice to have somebody that just holds space for you and that is your cheerleader and that's very patient. And I think that's that for now. I think I might go and lie down. Thank you for listening, and I will post again soon. Take care.